Welcome to the Charleston Chicks. We are here with TEDx Charleston speaker, scientist Leonardo Ferrera.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, Leo. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
So you are a 2026 TEDx Charleston speaker, and we would love to hear a little bit about yourself and the platform that you're going to be speaking on this year.
Sure thing. Where to start? Well, I'm originally from Portugal.
Okay.
I did my college there in biochemistry. That's where my first exposure to a laboratory, doing research, changing liquids, looking at animals, changing things. And then my college graduation gift was a one-way ticket to America.
Oh.
It was back in 2011, so I crossed the pond from Portugal to Boston, Massachusetts. And so this was to do my PhD at Harvard, and there where I really started work on immunology, which you study the blood, the cells in your blood, how it heals your body, how it attacks invaders. And I've been fascinated with that topic ever since. And I went west to San Francisco for a postdoctoral fellowship because why not do more school?
Wow, yeah.
And now since 2021, I'm faculty. I'm an assistant professor at the Medical University of South Carolina and the Hollings Cancer Center.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's been super fun.
Yeah.
Almost 5 years now. Yeah.
So what's the best part about your job currently?
I think it's a mix of the science itself, so being the first to see something. We do all these experiments, you put these cells together, do they talk, do they not talk? Do they kill, do they protect? Is the animal going to live longer or not? And whatever happens, you are the first to know. No one else in the world knows the answer, only you do. I think that's still the best part to this day. I would say a close second is the mentoring. I have PhD students, postdoctoral fellows, research scientists, undergraduates, even a high school student. And so it's really fun, it keeps you fresh just to see the spark in their eye, just like I had and still do, I hope, when I was their age. And so it's also a very rewarding part of my day-to-day job to work with them.
I love that. So tell us a little bit about what you're going to be speaking about at TEDx on April 29th.
Yeah, so I'll be speaking about our new idea of really bringing cells close to each other such that one protects the other. So to backtrack a little bit, there's this disease called type 1 diabetes. In this disease, your beta cells in your pancreas, which is right in the middle of your body, a banana-shaped organ, these cells go missing because they're killed by the immune system. It's an autoimmune disease. These cells are important because they make insulin. Without insulin, you cannot control your blood sugar levels. So imagine having to wake up at night because your blood sugar is high or low. We don't have to think about these things, but type 1 diabetes patients do. And so how could we potentially solve this? Well, if they're missing beta cells, put more beta cells in. So that's part of the equation. Can we make more beta cells? And we can start from stem cells and convince them to become beta cells. And I can make enough beta cells to fill up this whole room or even more than that. So we have a lot of those cells we can make in a lab. Now, if you just put them in on their own, it's like building a sandcastle by the ocean. It's going to get washed away, right? Because the problem started because the cells get killed. So not enough. We're also going to learn from the immune system. And there is these protector cells called regulatory T cells. As the name indicates, they regulate, they control immune responses. And so we found a way to make these regulatory T cells become the bodyguards that will protect the transplanted beta cells into type 1 diabetes patients. It's a molecular handshake of sorts.
That's incredible. Very life-changing.
How long have you been working on this particular concept?
In this specific concept since 2021. So I've been very fortunate since I've come here, not just in my laboratory, but also with other collaborators. So Dr. Holger Russ, University of Florida, for example, is a stem cell expert. And so it's really allowed us to think bigger and do bigger things because it's a complex disease, affects millions of people, and it starts in childhood. And so we want to solve it, but also I think it's part of something bigger. If you think about it, you can envision a future where we can make not just beta cells, but any organ you want in the laboratory. Likewise, you can protect any organ you want. So think about kidney transplant recipients, heart transplant recipients. There's both a shortage of organs for these people and also the drugs that they have to take at this moment completely shut down their immune system. So they become very susceptible to infections, to blood cancers. And so we want to, again, be more precise. Right? Can I change how cells talk to each other and say, you go talk to this cell there, and protect it from an incoming immune response. So that's really the big vision, is to be able to replace body parts at will without having to worry about nefarious immune rejection problems.
So you're really using the body itself
Yes.
to heal itself.
We are made of cells, and we'll use cells to treat our illnesses, correct?
What made you want to do this? What caused your interest in what you're doing?
That's a great question. I always wanted to be a scientist as a kid. Like, I would cut myself and like, wow, it comes back together. Or like, if you look at some animals like a salamander, you chop its arm off, it grows right back on.
Yeah.
But if you do it to a person, unfortunately, it doesn't quite happen yet. But we have the same skin and flesh and bones. And so there's something there we need to unlock. I'm a big fan of, I like human biology, but I think we can even look beyond that. Can we, in some extent, understand and also control human biology to then help cure human disease? And I think since I know myself, there's always been kind of always like being the first to see things, discovering things. You know, growing up in Portugal, there was this TV show, I think from Canada, called The Discoverers. So you discover new countries, new bacteria, new cell types. I always like that idea of like you seeing something new. And for me, in addition to that, also doing something about it. That's why the gene engineering comes in, the stem cell research comes in. You know all these things about how the universe works, and then you can actually change how these things work, like a little microcosmos inside your body, if you will.
How did your focus become on the type 1 diabetes specifically for the stem cell use?
I think it's a mix of reasons. I think one is that it's a really interesting problem where your immune system should be protecting you. But here's actually the villain. It's killing the cells that make insulin to control the blood sugar. And so there's some issue of like identity crisis, if you will. Like what should be self is being treated as non-self. And I think I've become probably obsessed at this point with understanding and controlling how the immune system can tell self from non-self. Because then, you, again, as I mentioned, organ transplants, they're non-self, but they're good for you. You die otherwise. So can we move this column of non-self into self? The reverse of the coin in cancer. Tumors are clearly bad for you, even though they're made of your own cells. So they are going under the guise of being self, but they're really non-self. So can I tell the immune system, hey, this cancer cell here, it looks like self, but it's actually non-self. It should be eliminated. So I'm a big believer that if we can really control how the immune system decides what is self, what is non-self, you can solve a lot of different disorders that affect humans.
That makes perfect sense. How do you, this idea, what you're working on, how do you bring that to life to where it truly can help folks with type 1 diabetes? But to your point, the concept of it, once you can do that, is you can take that to other diseases and situations using the same concept, right? How are you going to bring that to the people who really need it?
Yeah, it's a multi-step approach. Usually we see something in a laboratory in a petri dish. You look at a microscope, you see the cells talk to each other. There's some protection, some rejection. Then you go into animal models. You have a body that you can see, do the cells go to the right place? Do they live long enough to do their job? And so we're at that stage. Now, next step is to start clinical trials. And so that is a mix of academic and also biotechnology involvement. I myself started a company, I should disclose, end of 2024. And so the idea is to take these cell therapies into patients, as you mentioned. And so it's a lot of just, you need to acquire the data to convince yourself, very importantly, I'm very hard to convince myself, and others, that this is something worth pursuing. And so all the data right now indicates that it is worth pursuing, and that we have all the pieces of the puzzle needed to do this. For example, even here at the Medical University of South Carolina, there's a clean cell facility. That means that you can go in, you can get cells from your blood, for example, taken, and then people in astronaut suits manipulate your cells and grow them. Then they can put them back into you. So cell therapy happens here in Charleston, South Carolina, and many other places. Yeah. So you can use cells as you said, your cells. Cells as living drugs for a variety of diseases. You hear about CAR T cells for cancer, you hear about mesenchymal stem cells, you hear about stem-cell-derived tissues and organs for regenerative medicine at large. And so I think once you crack the code, right, because the genes are the blueprint of cells, and cells are what makes up our body. So if you can really, with precision and finesse, manipulate genes in cells, I think you're in for a gigantic level of opportunity.
So is clinical trials the next step
Correct.
for you?
Yes.
Which is a big undertaking.
It is a gigantic undertaking. So here we're lucky to, as I mentioned, a mix of being in a great environment at the Medical University of South Carolina, Hollings Cancer Center, and other partners, and also in the biotechnology world at large, because at some point you need more patients, more data, more resources. But really at the beginning, usually there's what's called a phase 1, so you test for safety, because I should mention that not every disease is equal in terms of the bar you need to clear, right? Sometimes for cancer, the patient fortunately has a very short expected life expectancy, right? Maybe only 3-4 months. That's very different from being a 2-year-old who just got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and type 1 diabetes became a lot of a chronic disease. So if you can inject insulin every day, check your blood every day, you won't necessarily die. So to put in some engineered cells, the bar is higher of like what we have to demonstrate versus someone who this is their last shot to stay on this planet. And so that's also a landscape to navigate. But in general, again, I think having infrastructure to recruit patients, to follow them, to administer these cells, that's what's really being built up here and elsewhere over the past, I would say, decade. Yeah.
And so when do you think your solution is going to be available to patients suffering from type 1 type? What's your goal? What's your vision?
Yeah. Our goal is to have it before 2030. So it's 2026 right now.
Okay.
So I have some funding until end of 2028, and a lot of this funding from Breakthrough T1D, the Foundation for Type 1 Diabetes Research, is really nailing down, I mentioned this molecular handshake, so what molecules are involved, right? You can imagine there's many locks and keys you could try to find the perfect one. So that's a big emphasis there. The other one is doing longer term studies. Like we've shown that this concept works up to 1 month in our studies. Can you make it 3 months? Can you make it 6 months? Right? And so once you have those two things in place, you're now in great shape to go into patients. And so the idea again is for the next 3-4 years, really go into type 1 diabetes patients.
That's amazing.
So once you solve type 1 diabetes, what's your next step?
There you go.
What are you going on to next?
Well, I think I'm hoping, and science is a beautiful endeavor for many reasons. One of them is really a team sport at the grand scale. So while I work on type 1 diabetes, other people work on kidney transplant, heart transplant, lung transplant, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis. And so I'm saying this to say that in terms of technology, the beta cell manufacture in the laboratory is the most advanced there is in any organ. We cannot yet, as a field, 3D print a heart in the laboratory, for example, or a liver. But we can 3D print, if you will, an islet of Langerhans, a beta cell cluster that makes insulin and is actually almost independent of location. Like right now in the clinic, you inject these islets through the portal vein of the liver, and they go in the liver, which is not the pancreas, and nonetheless, they work. They make insulin in response to blood sugar because they have ample blood supply. And so I think that the beta cell has also become a gateway to regenerative medicine, where we can make stem cell-derived beta cells that are as good as beta cells from people, and we can genetically engineer immune cells that can protect those beta cells. And so all the pieces of the puzzle are coming together from our efforts and others. And so once T1D is solved, there are many other diseases that consist of losing a specialized cell type. Could be neurodegenerative diseases, could be liver disease, could be, again, the organ transplant at large. And I think, that's really the way to go. Being from Portugal, but there's like the Portuguese ship paradox, where if you have a ship and you replace pieces of it, at what point does it stop being the same ship? If you replace every last tile, every last wood board, every last door, is it still the same ship? And you would think it is, right? And so I wonder for the human body, once you replace every organ, every cell, is it still you, or is it a new you?
Well, that is an interesting question. That's very interesting.
That's deep.
That was me as a child thinking about this.
That was you as a child. I love this.
We clearly know why you're in the field you're in.
We do.
That's amazing.
So what made you want to be part of TEDx Charleston?
It's just an opportunity to speak to everyone. I like to believe that my lab can be the world. And I think it's not that often that people get to listen or see how a scientist thinks.
That's accurate.
This is very
Agreed.
rare, right?
I love this conversation right now.
Yes.
Yes, this is very rare.
So you either see the end product or the lack of end product, right? If something fails, or you see, people taking tests like math Olympiads, chemistry Olympiads, or you see physicians taking care of patients. But how about, what makes a scientist a scientist? How do scientists think? How do they see the world? What makes them keep moving and waking up every morning and staying up all night like I did yesterday, like 5 a.m. I had to submit a manuscript March 31st. It's done. Journal of Immunology, wish me luck. And so what keeps that drive going? I think it's a passion, and I'm not the one to tell if the passion is born with you or if your mentors, your educators give it to you or a family or a mix of both. This I don't know. But there's something about it that it really comes from inside. Wanting to know, like never being satisfied, not being unhappy. I'm not a miserable person by any stretch of imagination, but never being quite happy enough. It's like, I want to know more, I want to do more. And, there are infinite things to study and to learn. If I could live thousands of years, I would go study physics next.
Well, you might be able to with the way you're creating things to replace
you might
organs.
Yes, regenerative medicine
Yes.
might keep you around for hundreds of years, and
I
you
have a
can
self-interest in it.
your second act can be physics. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's what you just said about those of us who are not scientists or in that field understanding why you think the way you do, but also the importance of science and having folks like you who do think that way and have that kind of vision because of the things you're creating. That
And the
fundamentally
people you're saving.
Yeah, and that helps humanity, helps people hopefully in suffering, and thank goodness for you.
Thank you. And a vision, I think, is a good point to bring up, where you never know where your discovery takes you. Mm-hmm. Right? I mentioned salamanders, I mentioned stem cells, I mentioned immune disease, and you don't know. For example, you might have heard of CRISPR, that you can cut genes with it. Mm-hmm. That came from yogurt. Because when you make yogurt, you don't want your bacteria to die, right? And so there's these viruses that infect bacteria and kill them. Mm-hmm. And so bacteria have this defense system, kind of their mini immune system, if you will, called CRISPR. And so then they're like, well, if bacteria can chop off specific virus DNA sequences, can I hijack this system?
How do you manipulate that?
Yeah, and cut human DNA sequences instead.
Huh.
So that's an example of something that these people are studying. They want to make more yogurt, or they want to know how bacteria work. And now here we are with the first therapy for sickle cell disease. Mm-hmm. It's a CRISPR-based therapy that got FDA approved in 2024, I believe.
That's very cool.
So you don't know where the path takes you. And so I think you really need to have people just working on whatever piques their interests, and also have continued funding for this, because again, you fund this it can't be for 6 months, it's be for 5 years, 10 years. And then some things never pan out. That's okay. But some things give you a 1,000x return. It's hard to know.
Science is you're playing the long game.
Very long game.
Absolutely.
But someone's got to play the long game, and move things along for the betterment of, us people, humanity. So that's very cool.
We are very excited to hear your talk on April 29th. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
And just one last question. What's been most surprising to you in this whole TEDx Charleston process? Anything?
I think several things. Number one, of course, how talented people are, both the coaches and the other speakers. Sometimes they're like, wow, I'm a bit out of place. I'm in great company here. But secondly, I think is also science sometimes teaches you to be removed. You want to be impartial. Mm-hmm. Like you're telling a story when you write a manuscript or you give a talk, but it's not about yourself. It's about your cells, your animals, the patients. And I think TEDx, if you want to really spread an idea, you have to connect with people and really make yourself a little bit vulnerable. Like, where do you come from? Mm-hmm. Like, why do you want to do this?
Exactly.
What do you think is next? And so I think,
why
to
do
be
you care so much?
Yeah.
Right.
So to be totally open with you, I think it's probably been the biggest surprising / learning for me, is how can I make myself more open, more vulnerable, more sharing, And that will also result in some personal growth, I'm sure. And so it's kind of a fun journey where hopefully the audience learns something by listening to the talk. And I for sure will learn something by giving the talk.
Well, I think we learned something
I
from you
know.
talking to
That
us.
makes me
I
very
think my
happy.
audience
My
will
IQ
too.
went up like 5 points in this
Right.
conversation.
Makes me very happy.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you. I can't wait to hear your speech.
I know.
Thank you.
We'll see you on
Thank
April
you.
29th.
Yes.
Thank you.
Exciting. Thank you.